Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Just quickly, what episode is this? 21, is it?
Oh, God, yeah. Yes.
21. Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 21. So I will introduce our usual hosts to begin with. Say hello, Mr. Peter Lantz.
Hello.
And say hello, Mr. Paul Bassett.
Hello.
Okay. And as it is our 21st birthday today, we have a very, very special guest lined up to spend some time with you. None other than Dan John, world-renowned strength coach, author of many books. I think I've got about 11. I'm sure there are more that I don't have. And I first met Dan back in, I think, 2012 in Florida when he was at a conference. I think it's right. I think Rocky Bleer, the American footballer, was talking there.
Yeah.
So I came over with James Brees and we came over to Florida, and Rocky Bleer was there. You were there. I think Dave Whitley was there. There was, John DeCane was there. There was lots of people there. So that was a fantastic. So nearly, 8-9 years ago now. But welcome, Dan.
Well, thanks. And then I've been to your place 2 or 3 times. Is it?
Yes. Yeah, we've done. I think you did a kettlebell level 2 certification. I think you've done 2 art of coachings at my place as well for weekends, and obviously we've seen you for various conventions and conferences and courses over in the UK. So it's been fantastic. So I think obviously lots of people obviously know the work of Dan and have read books and things, but lots of the listeners may be in their 40s, 50s, not from the health and the strength and the fitness kind of community, may not be as familiar with your work. But really what we want to do today is just have a conversation and just introduce you to people. And the one thing that I really love about I've said many times, Dan, and reading Dan's work, is that he takes things that could be very complicated, and some people enjoy making them more complicated, and through his vast experience makes them very simple and easy to understand. And it's almost like having a conversation down the pub with a friend, and everyone can understand what Dan talks about, and can go on and live a better life because of it. So first of all, Dan, do you just kind of briefly want to sum up your 60 plus years on the planet as to how we are here in 5 minutes or less?
There's a couple of things that actually I didn't realize it until I've been reading up in the last decade. But so I'm the youngest of 6, the youngest of 6 kids, 5 boys and a girl, and I never knew what an advantage it was for me growing up. Epstein has a new book called Range, which I think is really good, and it really does a great job defeating this concept that parents have that they can early specialize their child into being a world champion. And it's I really recommend the book. And he keeps noting that the youngest child, very often, since we have to sprint to keep up, we're getting knocked around in every sport we play, but we're also getting, my brother Gary is 8 years older. So when he was hitting me into a car in a game, I was getting 8 years of experience at age 7 that, and then the other thing I was lucky is that we have September 1st was the cutoff for school in California, and I'm an August 28th birthday. So if I'd have been the firstborn, I'm sure my mom and dad would have held me back, and I'd have been the oldest kid in the class. Being the last, it was like, get your ass off to school, get out of here, So I was always behind my classmates. Now I know this sounds strange, but what an advantage it is to be behind. And I talk about this all the time about what the phrase I use is deprivation builds capacity. So like right now with COVID, a lot of people don't have stuff in their home to train with. So they came up with something else, and all of a sudden you'll get this thing back a few weeks later. It's like, I can't believe how much better this is than going to the gym, the 24/7 spa. It's so much better to have, they have a suspension trainer and a kettlebell, and they're making the best progress of their life because it's what you don't have. And so my whole life has been kind of a study in deprivation increases capacity. I started when my aunt died. She gave us the brothers $500, $100 a piece, and we bought a weightlifting bar from a place called Sears Roebuck, which doesn't exist, a 50-kilo bar. And 1965 is when I started lifting. I was fast. I still, in fact, the booklet is in that shelf right behind me. I still have it, right there. And I just fell in love with progressive resistance exercise. And the word progressive has always been the thing that there's very few things in life that are like weightlifting, where if you put the time and energy and your treasure and talents in there, obviously too, that you get better. I mean, I know that sounds so obvious when you listen to it, but if you start lifting weights Monday, the next Wednesday, you'll be a little better. By Friday, you'll be even better. Next week, you'll be putting more weight on. 2 years later, you'll be the expert in the gym. And it just keeps building like that. And it just really appealed to, I think, the way my brain worked. I played American football, which is a sport I loved the most as a child. I wanted to go professional, but I mean, it's weird because James, you'd say that often in a room, I'm the biggest, strongest, fastest guy, right?
Yes, definitely.
I'm not being an idiot. I'm not being a jerk.
Yeah.
But to play American football, when I go into the room, I'm always the smallest, slowest, weakest. So there's a DNA component I couldn't overcome. And you cannot even explain it to non-Americans how freakishly unusual you have to be to. But as I read this great little book called 7 Days of Sunday, and the guy in the book, Kenny Avery, threw the discus in high school. And so I picked up the discus when I was in what we call the 9th grade here in the States. And then the discus became my mistress. And I officially retired. So I started throwing in 1971. I officially retired. So I don't do drug tests anymore. July 24th, 2010. But I threw the discus I had a 40-year discus throwing career. And then I did Highland Games starting when I got back from Middle East. And I became actually, in a way, probably better in the Highland Games than track and field. But, there's something about, for me, there's something about the standards of track and field. I mean, I could go over there to, what's it, Chelmsford, right? Chelmsford?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I could go over to Chelmsford and I could be the best American football player in the Chelmsford Football League. And all of us would have to sit back and go, yeah, well, that's not very good. So you can be the best Highland gamer in Western United States. And I mean, but when you throw 75 meters, the world stops if you're a discus thrower, because you are the greatest of all time. So I started coaching in 1979 and I continue today. So this puts me at 42 or 43 years coaching. I may have been the first American track and field strength coach. I don't know anybody. Well, there's some people who said, yeah, I was doing it before, but I was actually, okay, that's true. You might have been, but I was a strength coach. So, and it's just weird because that's another kind of thing you'll never, it's just a small thing. But, about 2010, I retired from teaching basically, which is funny because now I have 2 teaching jobs. I retired and now I have 2, but I'm not very good at retirement. And my wife said, go ahead and follow this path of, doing the writing and doing this kind of thing, what we're doing now. I wanted to share the collected wisdom of my coaches, my mentors, and some of the hard knocks I've learned. And it's been really, the last 11 years have been just remarkable, James. As you know, I live, even though by the way, I'm no longer a cripple, by the way, James. I feel great. When I first met James, I could probably not even walk, right?
Yeah, I think back in 2012, yeah, you certainly weren't moving anywhere near how you move now, without doubt. Yeah.
And I feel like my honesty and clarity about, I was born with a condition called pistol grip hips instead of normal hips. And so the day I was born, I was going to get 2 total hips. Thank God for modern medicine, because I don't know if I'd be around right now. I was when I had the first one, I was blind with pain. And then when I was getting ready for the second one, people said I acted strange. And it's like, well, I was on massive painkillers the whole time. But one of the things I'm trying to do with where I'm sitting now with, I don't know, 56 years in the weight room, 42, 43 years coaching, is I'm trying to pull out all those beautiful things that work over and over and over again, and not saying anything's bad or good, but maybe, okay, so you want to do this, but you know what? You don't need to do this. If you do this, you won't get hurt, and you'll be able to keep going instead of 5 more months to look good in a bikini. You'll look 5 years from now, 50 years from now, you'll look good in a bikini. I hope that's a good enough summary.
No, that's fantastic. And I think one of the things you touched upon there, which we can come back to, is this risk versus reward that you talk about a lot in training as well, isn't it? And I think one of the things you mentioned, we started this podcast, myself, Peter and Paul.
Wait, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
So we have Peter, Paul, and Mary. We have Peter, Paul, and James. We got the 12 apostles. We got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Do you guys just run out of names in England?
Yep.
Just
My brother's called Paul as well. Imagine that. Peter and Paul, two little dickies sitting on a wall.
That's why we needed Ringo, wasn't it?
Where did George come from? Where did this guy come from?
So we started this podcast back 21 weeks ago, basically, kind of I think it was during the first sort of lockdown that we had in England. We're in lockdown version 3 now. So
I thought Boris said he had cured it. Okay, well, I'll move on. Okay.
So we've spoke a number of times about, and I think I may have used your quote in previously about this sort of deprivation builds capacity or something along those lines, because I know for myself, especially, I was teaching in my back garden. I brought a couple of kettlebells home and just used those 2 bells and got much stronger because I only had 2 kettlebells to use, and I had a bar I could do some pull-ups on, and so it's absolutely fantastic. What do you think, as someone who is now, like you've said, in your 60s, you're a lifelong, you've been training your whole life and strength has been a big part of that, I know. What's your view on general population and strength training as they're getting older, as our listeners are in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s? I mean, I train people in their 70s as well. How important do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting. I'm rewriting Easy Strength with Pavel, and literally, as James Priest would say, literally, I was working yesterday on this question. And the thing is that we know this from the research from basically, it's older than I am. It's 70 plus years old, post World War II, 1950s. And it's Heitinger, Physiology of Strength, that classic text from English translation of 1961. That's the one I have. But here's the wonderful thing about so many of life's benefits. If you, so listen, we are gonna trend down towards the end of our life in many physical qualities. But here's what the research told us from the 1940s and 50s, is if I go through my life with a slightly higher strength level. Now, I got in full candor, mine is much bigger than slightly. But so if a normal person is on curve A, will they be able to see my hands in this podcast?
If they're watching on YouTube, they will. Yeah.
Okay, but here's the idea. If you come into midlife stronger, as you age, even if you don't train anymore, your decline will be the same as an untrained person's decline, but at a higher level. So your ability to get up and down off the toilet, up and down off the floor, up and down off a chair, up and down out of bed, is going to be at a higher. So listen, people in my life do not have quantity of life. Last year, back in June of 2019, I was doing a workshop there in England, and I said that morning, I said, people in my family die and this is a big thing to me. So quality of life is such a big deal to me. And someone came up after, and you shouldn't talk like that. Like some gremlin is going to. Well, I didn't know at the time, but my brother Phil, who was just a little bit older, had just died. While I was saying that statement, he had just died. So I know that in my family, we don't live long. We got pistol grip hips and we die young. So, but the idea is, what's great about having a higher level of strength, even if you stop training, the decline is at a higher level of decline. Boy, that's a there's a great pickup line for a bar. Hey, listen, I might not be much, baby, but I'm better than a lot of those other guys here.
I'm declining on the same level, but at a higher level. Have that one.
I'm not worth much, but a higher level.
You've got your own teeth. You're a real catch.
Okay, right here is a floss stick. When should you start flossing your teeth? You should start when you get your adult teeth. You only get one set of teeth. So if you can maintain by flossing and basic dental hygiene, those teeth will last until your very last day. I like what you said about that. Was that Paul who said that? Yeah, Paul. Yeah. I like what you said about that, Paul, because exactly right. It is the same concept. I have, this is my hair. These are my teeth. I might suck, but a little bit higher level of suck. So the biggest thing, James, is that in the big scheme of things, okay, let's do that. So your quality of life will be better longer if you strength train and do some kind of intelligent joint mobility and at some level of cardiovascular work. But I didn't say you need to run into walls and throw up, something cardiovascular. And we know that combination is the best. So that's number one. Number two is essentially, okay, I'm 63, but why do people call me still to move couches? Because I've been put on this earth, I guess, to move couches. Or you might call them sofas there or Davenports. Every time I go over there, you guys, I swear to God, the British make up new nouns every time I get there. Why don't you guys learn how to speak proper English like Americans, okay? Okay.
I keep telling my daughter, which she's 4 now. I think you met her when she was a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we watch Disney, and every time the castle comes up at the start, I say, I'm going to take you there one day. And then she said to me, I was listening to your podcast in the car, and she was in the car with me. And she said, Daddy, when we go to America, will they speak English? And I said, yeah. I said, the guy on the podcast now is American, and he speaks English, so we're going to go there. So
I remember going to Sheffield first, and I ordered what I thought was a bat, but they called it a bread cake. I don't know what they call them in Newcastle if you want to get a roll.
Balm.
A balm, yeah, balm cake, yeah. Balm, roll, bat, bread roll. Yeah.
Or a sandwich, as it's known everywhere else.
My favorite thing about going to England is that someone will say, well, didn't you know he was from Newcastle? Well, no, we can't tell by his accent. Now, y'all sound alike to me. I don't know.
I'll tell you how you identify someone from Newcastle. It can be freezing cold and they're still wearing a t-shirt.
Absolutely. But I also sound exactly the same as the Queen. Yeah, so I'll have that.
When I close my eyes, I actually think it's the Queen herself speaking.
Yeah, you were going to bow when you came on, weren't you? Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah, actually, she came, when she visited last time at the house, we talked about you. Hey, one thing, she passed the snatch test with flying colors. I was impressed, So she had an extra hand switch, but we're not going to,
Well. So Dan, you just touched on something there, which I know you talk about a lot as well. It's just kind of the carrying the couches or carrying the sofas, the kind of concept of work capacity and building.
Yeah.
So
that for a second? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I break the weight room down into 5 movements: push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded, carry. And it's nothing original. But the reason I go down that simple, I figure if it's 5, it's going to be a lot easier to teach, understand. And then I have them. Do you have a copy of my movement matrix? Would you mind putting on the show notes?
Yes, we can do. Yeah. I've not got it to hand, but we will do. Yeah.
And if you don't, ping me and I'll send you a new copy. But the idea is that So for me, and I don't want to hear about vertical and horizontal push, because the last thing, especially here in the States, we don't need more upper body work. Okay. So push is pushing the environment away from you. Pull is bringing the environment to you. Hinge is maximal hip bend, minimal knee bend. Squat is max. And then loaded carries is picking up crap and moving with it. Okay. So what work capacity is the ability. Okay, I'm gonna give it to you a better way. Let me explain work capacity this way. I had a doctor of physical therapy take me out to lunch, and it was a very cheap lunch. I really need to up my standards when someone's trying to seduce me. And they asked a good question after my total hip replacement. So that'd be December 2018 is my right side. He goes, "How did we do in physical therapy?" And I said, "It's interesting." And then, the way my brain works, I instantly went to an if then, and then I went to a symbol. I go, it's like a semaphore, a stoplight, red, yellow, green. Physical therapists are very good at red. When I came to, they turned me on my side. I got up to the walker. And by the way, the moment I got up, I went for about 200 meters on my first walk with a walker, because I wanted to win the total hip replacement. And I said, "You guys were great there. You guys are great about talking about using the rail and the stairs. You guys are very good about reminding me to sit down in the car, then swivel my legs. And you guys are really good about, and then 5 or 6 months later, you guys are really good with, okay, you're good. You are now fine." It was that middle part that was a problem. And if you don't mind, this is how I explain work capacity now, okay? So we have a thing here in America called Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving involves basically, the biggest part is coming home with the groceries. And you come home with the groceries and you have 18 grocery bags, 5 to 10 kilos a piece, okay? And to get into your house, there's not 10 flights of stairs, but there's 10 stairs. So how would you get those bags in? Well, let's just go through it. Hi, I'm Dan John. I'm gonna strap all 18 of those bags in. I'm gonna go up those flights of stairs. You'll be able to hear the foundation creak. And I'm gonna throw them on the kitchen table. Done. Paul's sitting here listening. He goes, "That's stupid. I would take 18 bags. I'd take one bag, 18 trips, 180 stairs." Here's what work capacity is. Work capacity is the ability to carry all of them at once, 18 round trips, or 3 or 4 or 6 5-kilo bags and 3. You get that? Work capacity to me is that matrix, that big swath of options that you would have between one trip and 18 trips. So my job when I'm working with athletes and normal people, listeners, is to give them more options to bring in the groceries, to give them more options of play, recreation, training. My job, deprivation builds builds capacity, right? Deprivation does. Sometimes you want to deprive yourself, but when you do, follow this, James, when you do only have those 2 kettlebells, all of a sudden you come up with new options to train. And then when you go back to your full gym, you'll be like, "Oh, I can't believe how narrow my mind used to be." So for me, work capacity is the ability to have that smorgasbord, that buffet of training options that you literally can do any single thing. And by having the options, your capacity, not only physical capacity, but your mental capacity grows. And I got to tell you, James, if there's a thing you can learn from my life story, is that when I was down to just a barbell and 4 plates, is some of the best training I ever did in my life. So basically, I had an Olympic bar, a 10-kilo plate, and 2 10-kilo plates and 2 15-kilo plates, and I trained for one of the biggest weightlifting meets in America with just that. Now, a lot of your listeners are going to go, "Well, that's stupid. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have," and I remember calling some of my friends who had university and school gyms and say, "Do you mind if I come by? I got a total for the meet." And so the athletic director and I had to open the door to just be me. And, 20 minutes later, I didn't, but That to me is what work capacity is, that buffet of options.
The thing is, in modern kind of thought, that's often confused with intensity and the kind of the intensity of the execution of something. That people think that athletic ability is often how intense you can lift, how heavy you can lift, how fast you can go, and how hard you can go. But actually, when we're playing the long game here, and it's one of the reasons I got in touch with you about 6 years ago, which I'll mention at some point. But it's because I heard you talk about Phil Maffetone, and it's about that long game, and it's easily confused. And a lot of our listeners come from schools of thought where we're thinking about intensity.
Paul, before you came on, they were telling me about you and, really questioning your intelligence. And I got to tell you, that was brilliant. No, exactly. People make the mistake to think that when you play, let's say we're at the World Cup, okay? I'm going to use a soccer football example. And when we finish the game, what people think is that this professional soccer player is tapped out. In truth, there's a good chance it might not play optimally, probably could play another game, right? Because their capacity is so much bigger. When I'm throwing the discus, I'm not putting 180 or 190 kilo bench press into the throw. It's a snap reflex, but I'm using probably a fourth of my upper body strength to launch the discus, 60 meters. Okay. We are well below our capacity in elite performance. I like what you're saying here. In fact, you actually said something that really has me. This is shocking, Paul, just because this is really a good point. Very few professional athletes vomit when they finish performance. In fact, you rarely see it. But the workouts that shall not be named think that is the standard. But in the real world, the best and the brightest are always well within their capacity. The guy, I think you know about this. My friends who all died that day in August back in 2011, one of the guys who may be one of the greatest American heroes of all time, they got into a really bad firefight and one of his buddies was wounded. The person I'm talking about also had shrapnel and bullet wounds. He carried his buddy 10 kilometers out. He carried, with shrapnel and bullets in him, he carried him 10 kilometers. Well, if you lay it all out and how are you ever going to save your life? So, in fact, to me, that is the most, I get all misty-eyed when I think about it. But so to me, and any parent who's listening, you had that exhausting day. Oh my God, the Henderson report was all fouled up. The telex system was telexing, whatever. You get home and your kid vomits on your chest. Well, you thought you were exhausted, right? And now it's time to help your child. So you're exactly right. And I think that's part of our job in strength and conditioning is to teach people that you compete probably here, but I want you to have the ability to be here.
And does that tie in as well, Dan, to I've heard you speak before about, like the arousal levels needed for different things. I know it's not exactly the same, but it kind of ties into that not needing to go 100% all out all the time and use aggression and psych up and all that sort of stuff, because you actually need to be, there's that kind of yin and yang, isn't there? That kind of relaxed and tension and that sort of thing you need for most things. Yeah.
So listeners, what he's talking about is my approach to dealing with elite athletes, but let me turn that real quick into what everybody else can use, okay? So the idea is a discus thrower, you don't need a lot of tension. You actually have to be pretty relaxed. Deadlifting, you need a ton of tension. Discus throwing, very little. You have to teach the athlete to dial it down or up. Arousal is the mental side. It's like, argh! You don't need very much to throw discus for. And if I have too much, I need to bring it down. And then the heart rate so those are the three, that's the triangle I use. My heart rate should be in the 90s when I compete as a discus thrower. If I'm in my 70s, I probably won't throw very far because I'm not where I need to be physically. And if I'm at 170, then I'm just too stupid to be a discus thrower. So I need to rethink all that. So this ties into real life, and I think I mentioned at my workshops with you, I use this as a parent. You know, when you get a phone call from school that your daughter got in trouble for punching a boy, in my case, you know, you don't want to come in with a 10 arousal. Yeah, you want to be at a 1 or 2. You want to listen to the principal, the headmaster, whatever you guys call it. And, you know, you want to be calm. You want to listen to what you don't want to react. You want to respond. And so this skill set of arousal and tension that you learn in the weight room naturally really has a life value. You know, if someone rear ends me in a parking lot and I come out of my car with a gun and start shooting, that's probably not a good idea. You know, that's probably not a good way to have community. Very common in the United States, by the way. Everyone, boy, our country. Oh, God. Okay.
We're not going to that.
Been a tough couple of weeks, I tell you. But, so yeah. So one of the things, if you are listening, you know, you just want to you want to look good and feel good and move well. God bless you all the way on that. One of the gifts you can get from strength training, besides increased work capacity and looking better and moving better, is a little extra skill set on dealing with life. One thing you will find, most people find, is that when you go into the weight room, especially, I can't say the same about cardiovascular work. When you having a crappy day and you do some overhead presses, you do some, I don't know, kettlebell swings, some goblet squats, and a couple loaded carries, you put the weight down, you go, ah, and all of a sudden, whatever it was, the Henderson report or your boss, or, you know, I know in James's case, the Queen, whatever, everything's a little bit easier. Everything's a little bit lighter. Everything's a little bit clearer. And that's just the standard response of the body to tension, relaxation, tension, relaxation. So it is a gift. It can be a gift. If you're still in a relationship, you will notice the relationship improves physically when both partners lift. Tell you one thing, when you're doing the 500 swing challenge, certain things improve. The 10,000 swing challenge, certain things improve. Just saying, throwing that out.
So I know you're actually, I mean, some of our listeners, I know a group of my members have done the 10,000 swing challenge just going through December. And one of them, Fred, actually finished. He went over a little bit. He finished today. And I see, we talked briefly before we started recording, but you're currently doing the 10,000 swing challenge kind of live on YouTube for people to watch. And I think you might be on day 11 or 12 or something like that.
It depends on what day it is. It's day 14.
Day 14. Okay. So what is the 10,000 swing challenge for those who don't know what it is?
Years ago, the owner of T-Nation, testosteronation.com, called me on the phone and asked me to put together a challenge. And he said, I want it to be 10,000 swings. And so my first thought was, well, we'll do it in 10 days. And so I did. Did 1,000 swings. Next day, got in the gym, did 800. I looked at Mike Brown and I said, I can't keep going. I just froze up. My back just froze up. So then I did it an additional 3 times, so 30,000 swings, to write my first article on it. And of course, the ink wasn't even dry on the article when people already had bigger, better ideas, because it's the internet. And I'm thinking, so it takes 20 days, but this person's responding within 20 seconds. I don't know how they got 10,000 swings in 20 seconds. So last year I wrote another article on the additional ways I do the challenge. And then this year at danjohnuniversity.com, which is one of my sites, a whole bunch of people are doing the challenge. And I was encouraged to do it with them. If you watch what I'm doing, James, you will notice that I have absolutely no interest in doing the 10,000 swing challenge. I'm not the greatest actor in the world, okay? I'm not faking it when I say I have no interest at all in doing it. Let me repeat that for those of you who missed. I don't want to do it. So what I'm doing, and it's funny because I get in there, I turn the camera on and I start swinging, and people say, what's your warm-up? I do swings. Oh, what's the rest period? Honest God, you're watching it in real time. I'm just doing swings, man. Oh, the questions are just brutal. Now, what's the upside of 10,000 swing challenge? Well, we know the importance of grip with overall body strength and even life quality. I have noticed that my grip strength has gone through the wall. My hip flexor, that whole front is loosened up amazingly. I will say my butt and hamstrings and lower back look better, which is a strange thing to say as a 63-year-old man. But I'll tell you one thing, man, Danny don't got no saggy butt. I got a rock hard can. If you like, we'll take a picture. We'll put it up there for you.
Absolutely.
And and I have lost, I'm probably sneaking up on 3 kilos since last Monday. This is I've only weighed in 10, because I started on January 1st. I didn't want to weigh in that day because, it's America and it's college football season. I think I started weighing in on the 3rd or 4th day, but I've lost 3 kilos, sneaking up, probably hedging towards 4 now. Now, we all know that, fat loss happens in the kitchen, but we also know that when you're 63 and you're doing a strength workout in the morning and swings in the afternoon, your body responds by losing weight. One quick point. When I was little, about 14 years old, I was reading these so I don't know if you guys see that. That's up there. That's every strength and health magazine ever made, at least from the 40s. And that's also right there. Those are all my books and translations. And this is my ready list, Sword in the Stone. This is you're sitting in my library right now. When I was about 14, I said to myself, when you're old, Danny, I said, should have listened to this. I thought if all I did was the Olympic squat snatch and the clean and press, that's all I would ever need for health. Now, it's funny because I look back on that and I cannot believe how smart that kid was. So if all you did was squat snatch and clean and press, you'd be okay. And he's right. Because you'd get the fast twitch work, you'd have the mobility work, you'd have the squat movement, you'd have the press movement. So basically what I'm doing now, 3 days a week in the morning session, I'm focusing on presses, overhead presses. And 7 days a week, I'm doing 500 swings. And I don't know how to say this nicely, but even my daughter's friends who are female are starting to pick up that their dad is hot. But the combination of double overhead presses, 3 days a week, and I'm varying between 40 and 100 total reps on those days, much more than I would recommend for others. But that's because, and James, you know this, because I can press, right? I can handle an unusual volume of pressing. And, the combination of just overhead pressing and the hinge movement of swings seems to be doing miraculous stuff to the point that I'm even going, you know what, let's keep this going longer. I'm also doing rucking, and I'm also doing loaded carries. Friday's the big loaded carry day. So that's, we're speaking on Thursday, that's tomorrow. Today's my mobility only day. Today's we call it tonic Thursday. Tuesday, sadly, is buns and guns. And that's when I do all the hip thrusts, the goblet squats, the deficit deadlifts. And then of course, work on my arms, because the world needs my armacondas. So.
One of the challenges, I suppose, when you've been in the industry for a long time. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, we're all trainers. We heard about you because we're kind of quite geeky about health and fitness, and you're surrounded by people who are quite physical, but you're also surrounded by a lot of people who like to kind of get into the granular and like to love technique, who love the history of lifting, who want to find the next marginal gain. But having read a lot of your work and listened to your interviews what I've noticed is that through that huge base of knowledge, it seems that you're on a constant quest to simplify, because a lot of what I've read from you was easy strength. And when I got in touch with you 6 years ago, I was asking you about Phil Maffetone, who I emailed you. You probably don't remember. I emailed you ages ago because I was interested in using a heart rate monitor for swings, because I was trying to work out a way of listening to my body. And I came from a background of running, and I thought that would be an interesting way of working on rest. But what I've always really loved, and why I think that your stuff translates well to general population, is because the way you simplify things and create something that's actually usable, because there is so much confusing stuff out there. I mean, our last podcast was on New Year's kind of gimmicks. And I mean, how do you counteract that wave of people wanting technical information with your kind of urge to simplify?
Yeah, I like what you said about marginal gains. That's, in fact, I think the listener should really tie into that. So you're going to go to a supplement store. I know it's different in the UK than here in the States. And our supplement stores are basically unregulated because my senator, he decided to get rid of regulations for supplements, which I don't think is a good idea. But here in the States, you can go to a supplement store and literally buy almost anything you can think of. I mean, it's not the Wild West, but it's close. But what you're going to get out of those 2 pills that they have locked behind the cabinet, those 2 pills and all the money and effort you spend on those, they might actually work. But what you've ignored is over here, the miles of the miles of stuff that you're ignoring. There's a great Polynesian phrase I use all the time, Paul: sitting on a whale fishing for minnows. Does minnows translate?
Yes, yeah.
That small little, tiny little sardines, smaller than sardines. And what happens is, so for example, Paul is my person here. Paul just spent $500 for this supplement or this magic drink for a month, and yet he's not doing authentic squatting, he's not doing hinges, and he's not doing any loaded carries. Well, trust me, deep squats, swings, deadlifts, farmer walks are going to do far more for your physical performance, how you look, how you feel, how you get up and down the chairs, far more than those little 2 pills. So you're right. And I think my job, Paul, is to keep people focusing on, well, I mean, whatever cliche you want to say, the big rocks, the foundations, the basics, because until you exhaust the foundational stuff, until you exhaust it, and then go 2 more weeks to make sure you really got everything, those other things, and you said marginal gains, I don't even think they're marginal. I know with your British bicycle team, you guys had that 1% thing, but what was genius about that is that they did 1% better in better sleeping pods, better everything. It was everything we all agreed to improve 1%. And I think sometimes the way you improve 1% is to look at things like quality of sleep. Are you drinking your water? I was flossing my teeth when you guys came in. This isn't some. I'm not trying to show. Oh, I flossed my teeth. I'm just saying that sometimes flossing your teeth is miles more important than drinking a magic post-workout supplement drink, long term. And I think that's what people miss. And here's the thing, and I get it. I know I am not sexy. I get that. I understand that really well. Just need to ask anybody in my family. But what the problem with constantly flying after the sexy is that you miss what really is important. And if James, when you get my email, I have that 6 decades and 50 words post I always put in. Would you include that in the show notes too? I mean, basically, it's make a difference, live last, reread good books, eat protein and veggies, drink water. I mean, then sleep soundly. There's nothing fancy in it. But until you do that, I don't want to hear about the next step. Until you can show a goblet squat and a farmer walk to me, I don't want to hear about this magic thing you read online.
So I think you've mentioned, we tend to reference you almost on a weekly basis, I think, on this podcast. But there was one that I always remember you saying, where people come up to you and say, just tell me what I need to do for a workout and tell me what I need to eat and I'll go away and do it. And they just want this magic formula to do. And then you'll tell them to do it. And the first thing might just be to drink, an extra 2 glasses of water a day or something like this. And then most people can't even do that, don't even just do the extra, the extra glass or the extra 2 glasses of water a day. So why do they need this the best training program in the world, and the 5-day split, and the macronutrients worked out, and all the rest of it, when they can't just have the extra glass or two of water. Sorry, Pete wants to.
Yeah. Peter, you're like me mum. You're calling me Paul instead of Peter. Who does that? And his wife is called Paula, by the way, as well. So, there you go. Anyway, about my brother. So you mentioned cycling. Have you ever heard of mammals, middle-aged men in Lycra? Dan, have you ever heard of that?
You just ruined my day. Thank you.
No, middle-aged men in Lycra, because a lot of people over here cycle, and they put Lycra on and all of that. But, bikes have become really kind of very technical, haven't they? And they cost a fortune. Yeah. So my brother said, like, he's in a bike club. I've got a mate who does it as well, they're both turning 50 this year, actually. And he said, like, basically everyone in their club is like taking the pedals off and putting lighter ones on and getting lighter rims and all of this. And they're saving weight on the bike to get those marginal gains. But they're kind of like chubby blokes in their 50s. And it's like, well, if you lose a bit of weight, maybe they'll go faster. It's hilarious. It's so funny.
Save $2,000, couldn't you, by losing 10 kilos?
Exactly.
My bike weighs about 30 kilos, and it goes... you guys know miles per hour, right? So I can get it up to about 10 miles an hour. Okay, it's called a cruiser bike. Okay, and I tell people all the time, if you want to lose body fat, use my bike. 100-mile race in my bike, because it's so inefficient that you would have to work the entire way. In fact, I like the fact that you mentioned that, because if you are, okay, you got Lycra, you got the aerodynamic helmet, you got the aerodynamic gloves, you got the little shields around your hands. That's great, but all you're doing is becoming more and more efficient. The bike is doing more and more of the work, and your ass is getting fatter and fatter. It looks, in fact, we have a guy here who wears a white Lycra suit when he races around his bike. And on my worst chubby day, I look better than him. What we know for fat loss is there has to be some kind of nutritional intervention of some kind, and usually people do it by carving out a macronutrient. And nowadays it's mostly carbs, and that's whatever. Or you got to do this, and the other one is inefficient exercise. Now, what's interesting about it, when the research, the nutritionists are right. 95% of fat loss happens in the kitchen. Food prep, food selection, right? Except the research doesn't support what I just said. When they take people who exercise a lot and make them stop exercising, within 2 weeks, they already start to trend towards type 2 diabetes and the syndrome X, whatever we want. That syndrome X is that whole kind of hypertension, that's syndrome X is when. So what we know about exercise is that hormonal change that exercise does for you does help you with body fat. And like I said, I've had no nutritional intervention in the last 2 weeks. In fact, the other night I had way too much Mexican food, woke up the next day 3 pounds lighter, 1.5 kilos lighter. So I really like your point there. We want to be as inefficient as we can in the exercise room. That's why the 10,000 swing challenge. And by the way, folks, it's free. I'm not making any money selling it to you. Why that works so well for most people is that there is nothing more inefficient than doing a kettlebell swing. You work like hell and you don't go anywhere. It's like doing jumping jacks or marching in place. If you could jump rope for an hour, it'd probably be the same thing. Though, good luck walking after that.
The thing is that you have a background of skill. So whilst we talk about inefficient exercise, actually what made you, gives you your standing within the industry is the fact that you have a skill set and that you preach skill and high level of skill. And, most people go into a fitness regime to lose weight. They want to just work hard. But actually, a lot of the stuff that I listen to you talk about and a lot of your books that you've written talk about the fundamental skills that you need to acquire to make the constant progress to see it really stick. Because we can all lose 10 kilos over a couple of months by being inefficient. But after a while, that's when you require skill to make any kind of long-term change.
What happens is you become efficient. At the end of this 10,000 swing challenge, I won't get anything from swings for a long time. You can see in my form, I'm getting better every day. In fact, I went from doing 25 reps going, oh my God, now I'm doing 40 and 50 and saying, oh, it's killing my form. That's why I think it's so important to have something like my movement matrix, where you go from isometric movements to the strength movements to the anti-rotation movements, is what I call them now, to the ballistic movements. And you need to swim through those movements. And if you don't mind, James, make sure you just so people can see that.
Yeah, it's written down.
Yeah, if you don't mind. And what happens with me, so for example, Mike and I were doing this. Okay, so you put, you guys are kilos, right? Okay,
yes.
Kilos?
Well, yeah, probably both, yeah, but kilos now.
Okay,
yeah.
So 2 or 3 kilo ankle weights on both foot. And then I carry, be about, just over 2 kilos, almost 3 kilos in each hand too. And then we go for walks with the ankle weights and the weights in my hand. You pump the hands. It's a form of heavy hands. And we go for 2 miles. We first did it for 2 miles. My body was, man, let's go eat. 6 months later, I finished it. It's like, okay, now we're going to do TRX, and you get used. So we did that for a while as a test, and then we went back to loaded carries, farmer walk, bear hug carries, sled pulls, and we were crushed because we were no longer efficient at the loaded carries, the heavy moves. So that's, you kind of have to, you do have to swim around a little bit and find new things. But the mistake I think people make, I guess there'd be 2. One is falling in love with one thing. Your bicycle riding example was very good with the Lycra and everything. Or mistake, that would be number 1, falling in love with one thing and not developing other houses to test work capacity and encourage fat loss. Though, to be honest, the best way to lose fat, Art Gravani, don't get fat in the first place.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I think you've really, I know you've mentioned as well, that you've really kind of brought to the industry that most people weren't doing and still probably don't outside of the kind of the people who are aware of your work and things, is training loaded carries, isn't it? Because that's something that you never see in traditional kind of gyms or spa type health clubs that you mentioned. And it's something that I think just going out in the car park and with some farmers walk frames or kettlebells, or like you say, the kind of the anaconda, the kind of squeezing med balls or overhead, although that whole kind of loaded carry family is so inefficient, isn't it? It makes you work hard, and it's got so much there. And I think it's probably the most, again, that term functional or got the most carryover to everyday life is fantastic, isn't it?
And just for the listeners, here's your take home. So farmer walks is when you walk with weights in both hands, and those are great. But for most of you listeners, the suitcase carry, that's weight on one side only, and then to switch it back and forth. Probably, if Stu McGill is right, and I like it, I always love Stu. He listens to me speak. He goes up to his workshop, he goes up to his lab, and then proves I'm right. What's the mistake I always think he makes? He has to go prove I'm right. It's so
inefficient.
Yeah. So the suitcase carry by itself might be the best one if you're training by yourself, and it can be anything. Honestly, load up a suitcase and go for a walk. You look a little weird, but
it's the only opportunity in the current COVID scenario, isn't it? Because you can't get on a plane.
Yeah. So yeah, you're preparing for your next trip.
Just not a wheelie one, because like that wouldn't really work, would it?
I remember when the wheelies first showed up. Wow, that ages me. So
I always find it funny in airports when it says if ever you're like over, is it 20 kilos or 15 kilos now? But they slap a really heavy sticker on it, and it's like, if you're a baggage handler and you can't pick up 15 kilos, you're in the wrong job. As far as I'm concerned, you need to get stronger.
I like carry on. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Loaded carries is an area most people miss. I'm very proud, James and Peter and Paul, about my efforts to make them more widespread. I think it's, you go to any American, it's weird because the American football strength coaches, they all kind of know my name because of that. It's weird because I'll go, I'll call up a very famous program and say, hey, I saw it, and it'll be like, oh my God, I love your work. It's like, and it's always the loaded carry stuff, not the other stuff. Yeah. And it's, so, if you got a team of rugby or GAA, American football, I think you'd be crazy not to be doing loaded carries on the field of play. It should be seamless. It should be on the practice field, just a normal part. The teams I work with here in the States, that's one of the things we're actively doing now, is getting the weight room on the field of play. So you're doing, in one school is taken very seriously at one of our universities. They tumble at practice. They do hurdle walkovers. They tumble on the football field, American football field. They do hurdle work. They do trap bar deadlifts. They do farmer walk suitcase carries during part of the practice rotations. And I'm like, because I personally think it should be seamless. You shouldn't have a weight workout and then a conditioning workout and then a skills workout and then a team workout and then it should be seamless, because that's the way things go. I hate to say I pioneered it because I stole it from the Germans, but from the 60s. But if any of you are coaches or listening, go to danjohn.net and look for a contrarian approach to the discus throw. And you can just see you don't even need to read it. Just look, I got pictures of how I combine farmer walks, overhead squats, and power curls into a training session for the discus seamlessly. And all I'm doing is coaching the discus. My athletes are doing the other things on their own, and hill sprints. Yeah, it's an amazing way to get. So in a 1 hour session, you get your throwing, your lifting, your conditioning, your technical work, your strategy work, your tactical work, all at once. 1 hour session. Thank you very much. Take the other 23 hours of your day to become a better student and human person.
I think that's your influence, really, for most of our listeners who are, from the age 35 onwards. Your influence really is in the fact that you've communicated a lot of these ideas to trainers. So a lot of the trainers that I know have either attended one of your workshops or know of you. And I think this is why it's great for you to be on the podcast, because a lot of what informs the way we work with our clients is the 2 books we've read with you, so we have seminars and all those certifications and things like that. And I think what attracts me as a trainer to your way of thinking is that you have a global understanding, and that there is a reason for doing things, because particularly at this time of year when people are seeking out a fitness solution, it can come across as kind of very confusing, but also at the same time, very random. Why? I like the idea that a trainer would have thought about why something was in a program. And I think you spend a lot of time having thought about why a movement or an approach has value. And that creates a kind of philosophical discussion as a trainer that we can then impart on a client by just training them. They don't have to worry about that. But that deep thinking's been done prior, and there's a forum to have it.
Yeah, it's shocking what a good point. This is 2 good points you've made. I'm a little stunned. It was a joke. Okay. But you're exactly right. So Stu McGill has this idea that you should have in a training program, okay, exercise, reps, sets, load, why. So with my matrix, and I'm not, by the way, and the matrix is free, and James is going to post it. And if you don't have a current one, just let me know, James.
Yeah.
But the idea is there's 37 exercises on the matrix, and that's all we do. That's all I do. That's all I coach. And people will look at that and go, what about this, this, and this? And it goes right back to your point, Paul. I can defend all 37 movements. And if I go see, like, for example, it was different before. And then I hung out with Brett Contreras for a while, started doing hip thrust, threw out a whole bunch of crap, put hip thrust in. And so the why is built in. So I like your point here. I think this is really crucial, is that, so what I do as a coach is the first question I ask is, what equipment do you have? I mean, if you don't have the equipment, then it's going to be a different thing. From there, what do you know how to coach? And then from there, here's the exercise menu. And then we plug and play from there. The least important thing, I think, is reps and sets, and probably even load, because what you're trying to constantly do is fit the equipment, the goal, the amount of time available, the limitations of the person, your limitations as a coach, what you can, I mean, this isn't a rip on anybody, but, I can teach the Olympic lifts, power lifts, and every kettlebell thing, but you might only be able to do 2 of those 3, and that's fine. So let's focus on what you know and can coach, and you have the equipment for. So the why should be taken care of, in a sense, well before you sit down with your first client, well before you put down, here's the program, or here's the workout. The why should have been taken. I can defend every single exercise I recommend. In fact, that would be a really interesting workshop. I almost do I do that at workshops? Go through the whole matrix? Do I go through it all?
You have got, yeah, we've got the last one you did with us, and it goes through the kind of the moving plank family as well. Is that within the matrix you're talking about? Yeah.
So yeah, moving plank. Okay, gentle listener, a plank is, everyone knows what a plank is. I take it because attention to something called moving planks. The 2 easiest ones to understand are the goblet squat, which most people say is the most important invention in the history of weightlifting, and the farmer walk, which are both, they're moving planks. So you're planking while moving. And of course, it's great to plank, but very rarely in life, outside of the Office episode where everyone was planking, rarely do people just plank. You have to hold on to that tension and locomote somehow, Yeah.
And I was just going to ask you, Dan, I'm conscious of the time and what we've had from you so far, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I've got the kind of guys that I train, and I know this is probably, again, like Paul said, you've had probably single-handedly the biggest impact on the way I coach and the way I think in the industry from anyone else I've learned from over the years. And one of the things that you really brought to the forefront was the importance of getting on the floor, getting up from the floor, tumbling, rolling. And I always remember you being at my studio and you running and doing somersaults onto crash mats and things like that with a big group, which was great fun. But from a practical point of view, with real world carryover, I know you talk as well about the danger of falling as people get older, and the ability to have integrity, to stand and to balance and that sort of thing. Is that something that you coach yourself now, or is that something is that something that you can? Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
Sure. So what I do now, it's a little bit more elegant now than it was when I worked with you. So in my assessment, the 1, 2, 3. Can I come back on?
We would love to have you back on. We would love to have you back on. Yeah.
Let's do this. Next time I come back on, we'll go through the 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment, which I think right?
Hmm.
And so, and when I get back to Chelmsford, I'll go through this again. So when are you inviting me back?
As soon as you are allowed to fly over and we can have you over, would be an honor again. Yeah.
My friend, and you all have to stay at the hotel he recommends and go out to the pub every night with me.
It's great.
What's the name of that place?
Was it the Clock Tower or something?
No, it was the it's the what's the bloody the Grange. The Grange is the pub.
The Grange.
The Grange.
Write that down, man. The Grange.
I think that's where they ran out of whiskey one night when you were there. I think.
Oh God, you're blaming me again.
I think there'd been a bunch of Scots in the night before, hadn't there? That's what it was.
It was the Scots the night before. Okay, so next time I come on, I will go through the whole assessment. But let me just go real quickly. Okay, so next time, gentle listener, we're going to go over get backups. We're going to go over all that stuff. But so assessment number 1 is this. Can you stand on 1 foot for 10 seconds? If no, I send you off to a medical doctor. And I don't care, you're going to a doctor. I won't work with you if you can't. Really quickly. So what I try to get my people to do, and I do this, just for the record, I'm 63. The most dangerous thing in my home is my floor. That's the most dangerous thing to me in the home. Razor blades and rattlesnakes and great white sharks, those are all fine. It's the floor that's going to take me out. So when you brush your teeth, stand on one foot when you brush your teeth, or gently, and we call these speed skaters. You can even shift back and forth when you're doing something simple. So it's a simple. I'm standing on one foot, and I'm on my left foot, and I'm gonna drive my right ear over to my right, and what I'm gonna try to do is use my ear. So see how instead of going like this, I'm pulling my head this way to cause myself to lose a little balance. So I'm balanced. I'm going to push the edge of my balance. I'm going to shift and drop and go this way, lose the edge of my balance, shift and drop and go this way. Another drill we use is we have a box. You can use a jump box or any box you have in the gym, doesn't matter. And we maybe even could put colored squares, a pink, a green, a yellow, or A, B, C. I don't know how you guys do the alphabet in England. I don't know.
Well, we say Z.
We've got a U. We've got a letter called U, and it's in a lot of words that you don't.
Oh yeah,
know
I
about,
noticed that
like
one too.
Color and all of that sort of stuff.
So
in aluminum.
You can go A, B, C, but here's what you do: is you have the client who looks like me stand on one foot, and you say A, and so I'm standing on my left foot. The box has the 18-inch box or whatever the half-meter box has A, B, and C on it. And I stand there and I tap A, you say B, C, then you go B, C, C, A, and I stand on one foot and tap. What we're building up, and I have a whole series of these, okay? It's on a video on my YouTube channel, but I have a whole series of these. So this is my mistake, James. For years, I taught people how to break falling. And then my good friend Taylor, who I talked to yesterday, said, well, you ought to teach people how to not fall too. So today we're going to talk about not fall. Next time I come back, we'll talk about fall. Okay? So these simple brushing your teeth, if you're drying off a dish, if you're putting the dishes away, anytime you get a chance to stand on one foot, just take a moment to do it, especially if your brain is doing something else at the time. This little speed skater drill with the ear lead, just a nice little, the tap test on the box, very, very simple things you can do to get your balance, to teach your feet that when things go over, it's not yet panic mode, bring yourself back over. You don't freak out, you can bring yourself back. And so first is balance, drills, 1 foot drills, and then we work on the break falling. And by the way, the upside of doing hinges is if you start to fall, this is a very simple thing any listener can do. Sorry, it's my group coming here to train with me. Good morning. Will you take care of the cars? Thank you. So, damn it. I hate being 63 sometimes.
What about hinges?
Yeah, you said a good thing about hinges. Yeah.
Here's a very simple thing you do. Okay, I'm standing on my left foot, okay? My right leg is free to swing. I take my right hand and I grab my shoelaces of my left foot. We call that, well, we have a couple names for it, but it's Taylor calls it, I think he calls it the break fall drill. We call it the Taylor Lewis drill. But what happens is that is the position you get into before you fall. But here's the weird thing. You wake up the next day, if you just do one side, left foot's on the ground, I'm grabbing my right shoelace with my right hand. You wake up the next day and your hamstrings are killing you because you've probably done a perfect hinge. And so hinges are part of the process of preventing falling, which is weird because getting back up, very often you'll see a squat and a hinge getting back up. So the whole family of movements, the suitcase carry, as So one of the exercises I recommend for balance is suitcase carries, marching in place, going slower as you go through, to the point that you do isometric stands with weight on one side. Okay, you're going to ask yourself, well, does that build the obliques? Yeah, okay, it builds the obliques. Does that build balance? I don't know. Maybe. But what it does, it's a simple exercise that anybody can do at home. All you need is load in one side, march in place, going slower through the reps. And those are some very simple things, James, that every single listener can do right now to help them with step one. Now, step two is break fall. And I was blessed as a child I did a sport called judo. So I learned how to fall. And not long ago, I slipped on some ice here in Utah. My brother-in-law watched it. And he said it was like watching Ninja Warrior stuff, man, because I in the air, I did the cat move. In the air, slipped, both feet went up, and I catted it and caught myself. I was on stairs, cement stairs. How much damage would have happened?
Well, I can tell you what had happened, because my wife slipped on some cement stairs and broke her humerus here, and it was 8 weeks of healing, and it's so you did well.
So listen, let's James, when do you want me to come back?
Whenever you're available. we will.
Do you want to do next Thursday?
Next Thursday we have Paul McElroy. Actually, do you know Paul?
Yeah, why don't you get somebody important?
I was going to ask you. He's on. So do you have a question for him? And I get a question for next time.
Well, just ask Paul. Here's your issue. Here's what you're going to do. If he remembers, what is the most uncomfortable he's ever seen Dan John?
Okay.
You remember that? Write that down. Okay. So I mean, if you're
hold on. Here's the answer. The answer is this: Niles' maid of honor's speech, in case he forgets.
Niles' maid of honor's speech.
I guess matron of honor doesn't matter, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's on next Thursday, and then whenever the following Thursday, if it works for you, or we might even be able to do another day. So
I think we'll be able to do that. I'm looking at my calendar. Yeah, I would honor. And here's the nice thing about that week is that week I won't be training, because that's the week 3 weeks a year I do a thing called Power Red donation. That's when I donate 2 whole units of blood, but I get the plasma back. That's also the week I go to the dentist. That's also so that 3 weeks a year, I try to pump everything into 1 week where I don't train.
That's a fun week.
Oh, it sucks. By the end of the week, that's the week I get, that's the week I would go to the proctologist. That's the week I get the colonoscopy. I try to, it's all the fun stuff. And so that'll be a nice light week for me. In fact, so by the time
you just need to do something wrong and have an argument with your wife, and it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
So should we say 2 weeks today then, Dan? Would that work?
Yeah. Hey, Seth, will you deal with that? Yeah. So you're saying the 28th?
If that's 2 weeks today, then that's Yep.
14th, yes, it will be,
yeah. Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
So James, do you want to wrap up?
So we go have Peter, Paul, Mary, Ringo, George, Matthew, Mark, Luke. Good.
Yeah.
And we'll do the same time with you, Dan, if that's okay. 8 a.m. for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you don't mind, if you can link the movement matrix, if you don't have a good one, let me know. If you can find that YouTube video with me doing the 1 foot drills, it should be fairly easy. Some people use a thing called a search engine. I seem to be the only person in the world who knows how to use it.
There's a thing you can do where you can send them a recording of you Googling the thing that they're looking for. They go, how do you find this? You type it in here and you get it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, we'll sort that all out, and if we have any issues, but we'll be fine. We'll whack that in the notes. That'd be brilliant. And then next time we can, because your 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment has actually become a part of our assessment that we do with every member who comes in. So
I'm struggling on time. Actually, I'm okay. I don't.
No, we're going to go.
We're going to wrap up now anyway. So,
Dan, we're going to let you go and train, and you've been incredibly generous already.
Hold on. So you find that assessment valuable? You.
Yes, I use it with for the last 4 years. Everyone since you last came and did your Art of Coaching, and then it's in. Is that from Can You Go? Isn't it? I think.
Can You Go? Yeah.
Yeah. So we use that. We use that with everyone.
But you notice how it's not perfect, but boy, it sure answers the first 2 weeks, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And that's, I think, my goal in helping you is to not necessarily give you a vision of 20 years from now, but just get you through, sometimes like when your daughter goes off to school for the first day and she's crying and so nervous, you don't want to tell her that when you go off to college, it's going to be worse, or university, it's going to, oh yeah, I won't see you for years. That's not, you deal, right? You just want to get through that one day. And I think the mistake we make as personal trainers and coaches is we sometimes go, give me 2 weeks. And that's what the assessment strives to do, is give you something to work with for the 2 weeks. Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. We will, Peter Lant, do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye. Thank you very much, Dan, for coming on. Brilliant.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to the Grange.
And Paul Bassett, do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye. I'm sure my clients will say goodbye as well, because you're the reason why they have to do down ups every session, getting down onto the floor and up again, down again.
You know when they'll thank? I've said this to my own students. You're not even going to remember my name when you thank me. You might slip when you're 72, and that reflex kicks in and saves. Maybe it won't save your. Well, it might save your life, but it might save you from a really crappy 10 years.
Yeah.
No,
so there you go. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. It's been a pleasure as always. And I'm looking forward to 2 weeks' time. And we will ask Paul McElroy the most uncomfortable time he's ever seen you. We'll ask him that next week. Brilliant.
All right. Love you guys.
Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Remember to subscribe, remember to like, remember to follow, remember to share everything. And we will see you next week for the Health Oddity podcast, episode 22 with Paul McElroy. See you soon. Take care.
You've been listening to Health Oddity with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthoddity.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.